The meeting is,
So because in the recording, I never heard an adjournment.
well, no, because you heard a lot of the. There was a lot going
And
on.
then I kept seeing, it was either Steve or Scott standing right in front of the owl, and I could see like your sweater or your jacket, and I was like, I can't read lip, because I'm pretty good at reading lip, so I was trying to, but then that person was in front the whole time, because y'all went around and were standing out talking to people, and I never did get an adjournment, so if that's something you want to add to the minutes, you can certainly feel free to.
I can't remember what the exact time
And
was.
it's totally up to you.
Was it like 5:30 maybe?
I think I put, no, it was 6:15. The city council was coming in and you guys were still in the room and
Yeah, we first, yeah,
then
that
the
was very
recording
awkward
stopped
at
and I
the
was
end.
like, I'm gonna call it 6:15.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. That's good. We aren't still in session.
You're not, that's good to know. That's very good to
Thank
know.
God.
And we moved with our feet.
Well,
And hopefully we can keep it kind of short tonight. I know Mid City had to leave at 5:15, so Mid
oh,
has to leave.
okay, well, I'll call the meeting to order of the Leadville Historic Preservation Commission as of May 23rd, it's 4 p.m. Could we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Lindquist,
Here.
Commissioner Spillman,
Here.
Commissioner Whittington,
Here.
alternate Bailey. She's here as well.
Here.
Chair Martinek,
Here,
Commissioner Edwards. Alternate Flagger is absent.
Sure.
okay, could we have, well, just, are there any revisions to the agenda? Does anyone want to move that the agenda be approved?
I'll move to approve the agenda for today's meeting.
I'll second that.
All in favor, aye? Opposed, no? Okay, the minutes for May 9th. Any corrections to the minutes?
Or any additions, if I may add, I had trouble with the Zoom recording, I couldn't hear very well on that one, so if there's any additions of something that you feel is left out, please let me know, because that's
Okay.
an issue. That's why it's only one page.
No, we want to hear everything that was said.
You'll have to listen to the garbled recording yourself, because I had
Thought
trouble.
it figured. Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes for the 9th?
I move that we approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Second,
I'll second that.
favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no? Public comment from anyone?
Love to make a public comment, if it's okay.
Hmm?
I would love to make a public comment, if it's okay.
Yes, you
Actually,
may.
a couple of them, now that I think about it. I want to let you know that, Sherry Popovich, who was standing back in the very corner during the open house, wrote a letter of apology, to the HPC. I don't know, did she send it to you guys too?
No,
Or did I just get it? Anyway, nonetheless, it was a very nice letter apologizing for not being better informed before she got here. And she said she really learned some things while she was here that kind of were a contradiction to what she believed coming in. Actually, we saw a lot of it, except some people, never came around to her enlightenment, but that's a whole other story. I just want to let you know, she did write a letter of apology.
Could we see that at some point?
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't even think about it until just now, but
Okay.
it's somewhere in my office.
It doesn't have to be this minute. But sometime.
Yes, I'll get copies of that for you and maybe just scan them and send them out to you, it might be the easiest.
Who was that again? What community member?
Sherry Popovich.
Oh, sure.
The second thing I would say, and I talked to a couple of you about this, not everybody. You know, when we have open houses, we do so for a purpose. We want to hear from the public, but also we want to be able to say that we gave them the opportunity to be heard. That having been said, sometimes in government, you have to look at the opinions that are all around you, varying opinions, and decide which are important to you and which are not important to you. And so without getting into the details of the people in that room who I would find unimportant to me in the decision-making process, that's the way I think, you know, in terms of how do we go forward from here? Do we take everybody into account? My answer is no, you don't, you can't. So just a thought as you go forward with your decision making. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other public comment, any other public somewhere? Oh. Okay, housekeeping items, legacy grant follow-up.
Honestly, I just put the email that Steve had sent to Veronica, I believe, and just wanted you guys to see that. I also, on that note, wanted to know, do you think Steve's correspondence with her is enough, or should I do a thank you for the opportunity type email to keep in their good graces? Is it important? What do you think?
If we were going to reapply, I'd say, yeah, but
Okay.
otherwise they pretty much made it clear that they're not gonna fund us.
Okay,
I wouldn't bother.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And that was just to let you guys know what had, even though you were included, and I just wanted to be part of the record so that you could see that Steve did reach out to them about reapplying. It did not seem worth it.
I don't think they even got it.
They didn't understand. They simply didn't understand, because they sent an email and I tried explaining, and
Mhm.
them and Nell, I believe, at the climax,
So,
were not understanding
okay.
that if this was in pieces.
Mm.
They couldn't see that we could ever afford that huge bottom line number to do everything, and I was explaining, we're already doing it. Just we're piecing it together. They never could figure it, they just didn't understand, I think.
I think the Legacy Foundation had some other issues too, just based on the people on the board who make the decision.
Okay.
I think they very well could have been in the room at the last
Oh,
meeting.
okay.
You would have heard similar comments from them.
Okay. So this is not something they're really excited about anyway, so, okay.
All right, anything else? Lori?
No, I
Okay,
actually don't.
moving on to new business, the code amendments, updates after the open house and city council work sessions.
All right, so wanted to use this opportunity to do two things. First, to review some amendments that I've made to the red lines since the city council work sessions. And then also to do a follow-up on the open houses. I did make one update to both the memo and to the red lines since your packet was published. I just overlooked something, so I'm going to share my screen here quickly, and then put the memo on the screen and the red lines on the screen.
And he's referring to the 2-page handout that is behind your packet that I just printed, right, that we got.
Yes. So to refer to that updated memo, it's loosely, then we'll all be on the same page, and I'll share it on the screen. Let's try that. Says boom.
Oh, yeah, I'm having some problem, isn't it?
We only had, I think, we only had Joey at the second, city council work session. So some of this may not be familiar with you, this is the first time you're hearing it. But at the second city council work session, Joey was present, and this was not the joint work session, this was the one that followed, which was just the city council. And there was a council member who said that they would like to have that requirement to effort to sell the structure, they would like to have that requirement removed. So if you were to look at the red So you're not doing it to demolish the building, you're doing it for preservation, restoration, rehabilitation. But those terms are currently not defined. And because I'm very familiar with the historic preservation code from my previous job, I went back to see what that code says about, demolitions. And it's the exact same language. So whoever wrote that code and this code, they're pointing to the same place. And I mean, I doubt whoever wrote this code for Leadville pulled it from Breckenridge, but they're the exact same. So kind of modeling this after that, that was just kind of lucky, to be honest, but I think that works really well. But going beyond that, like I mentioned, we do not have defined terms for preservation, restoration, or rehabilitation. So we need those terms. Is everybody with me so far? Okay, so if we go back up in the red lines to the definitions section, which is 174420, page 2 of 12 of the red lines. Well, let's actually go to page 1 of 12. So we need to better define we will need to define total demolition and partial demolition. So there's a very and then going down to the next page, this is introducing definitions for preservation, rehabilitation, and restoration. And I think most of the projects that we will see are going to fall into the rehabilitation definition. So if you read that, it says the repair, alterations, or additions while preserving those portions of the features, which can basically the character defining features. So that's kind of the connection to address that comment. The city council member's comment was these things appear to be kind of overlapping, but that's not clear and concise that they're separated. So introducing two different categories, 2 different types of demolition, total and partial, with the partial definition referencing terminology like rehabilitation, which talks about doing these kinds of additions with kind of projects we see. I think that would provide a lot more clarification in the code. And these definitions are pulled straight from the Secretary of Interior standards. So I think these are very, very solid definitions.
Stuff farther on, but this explains it. You do have to jump back and forth. Even though that wasn't built in the 1880s, it was potentially early in the 20th century, so it may have been within the period of significance, or maybe not. We didn't know at the time until we tore into the walls and found some old wallpaper. So I was wondering where additions fit. Read this carefully, they'll be able to understand.
Right, and that's been staff's job is going to be to help provide those interpretations and help people navigate this. Maybe long term we'll have a handbook that kind of dial some of this down, so it's not the legal codified language, but it helps them navigate the code a bit. But in the meantime,
Partial demolitions be considered insubstantial, or would they always be substantial?
good question. Let's go back and look at the section on partial demolition or insubstantials. And
The only possibility I can think of is if someone had a historic building that had some non-historic addition that they just wanted to remove the non-historic. Right, and that's all they would do.
They would just remove
That could-
not.
That potentially might be insubstantial.
I think, 1E and 2G give some flexibility for staff to make a determination that, kind of in the situation you're talking about, if there's something that's non-historic that clearly needs to be removed in order to return the building back to its, its original state. And that removal would not affect the character in any substantial way, then I think we can use those, I think we can use G or I guess one E to make the determination that it's not a substantial.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah,
Madam Chair, can I ask a question about this? What is the HPC advisory committee? Why is it even in
It is a non-voting member of the HPC and the planning official. And there are, it said in code that some of the things can be reviewed by the advisory committee and be deemed insubstantial. So Mark Miller, that usually comes as our advisory person that we,
So Mark would have to be involved with Chase.
Yes.
In that decision.
yes,
Okay, thank you.
And to answer kind of the second part of your question, we have a 3-week process from the time they submit to when it goes in front of the HPC. And so they're actually, for a fairly significant project, there can be a lot that has to happen in that 3-week process. And that's, really only have 2 weeks because we have to publish the packet the week before planning and zoning commission, it means, or I'm sorry, HPC, it's just too many commissions. So if we have to prepare a report and all these things, there's a lot that happens in that 2.5 week period. And so that's why it's pretty essential to have that member help out staff, because with a small staff, if you have a lot of other things going on with the planning and zoning that same week or two, things could get very busy. So it's I think that is necessary for a small staff.
All right,
If you compare that to like planning and zoning commission, sometimes that can be a 7-week process before planning and zoning commission, so there's almost double the amount of time to evaluate an application.
So if somebody wanted to tear down a part of a historic house, they come to you and Mark first and say, this is what I want to do, and you look at it and decide, is it a non-historic part of the house? And then if it was, you might say, okay, this is insubstantial. Or
If we have the information to make that determination, I would probably say that I would probably tweak Mark in when I was overloaded, like do, with just staff, and that's what I would strive to do. But yeah, just to answer your question, if we can make that determination, at staff level, but if we can't make that determination, then, for example, is this a historic addition? Did it gain significance over time? If those are questions that need to be answered, and we won't go comfortable at staff level, we could classify it as a substantial when it comes to the HBC.
do you want to specify somewhere in here that total destruction is always going to be considered substantial, but partial destruction is based on review?
That absolutely makes sense for a house. I guess we'd want to think about that in terms of like a shed, for example. We would always want a shed to be come in front of the HPC for public hearing.
isn't it you guys' thoughts? I mean, just judging from the past few years, any total demolition should come before the HPC, is that not, am I misreading?
Right, so that would be, yeah.
So whether it's
That would be
shed or a
considered-
house.
that would be automatically considered a substantial and come to us.
Yeah,
Like we had a work session, maybe a month or maybe 2 months ago for a shed, and I didn't feel comfortable determining whether or not it was a historic structure or not. So we brought it in front of you for a work session, and the commission determined at that work session, before they even submitted a formal application for a COA, that it was not historic, and therefore that a COA was not required. So just kind of thinking about it in that context. So if we could say, yes, a COA, substantial COA is required for demolition of a historic structure, period.
Yeah, well, I think it might not hurt to make it really clear. That, you know, if you're gonna tear something down as historic, you're always going to have to go through this process.
So I'm just checking what we already have. So we have under 174430 ability, we have A4, which says these regulations shall apply to demolition of any historic structure in the NHL district. And then going down to the next section, section 40, general restrictions.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it would be repetitive then in 2A, you know, it says reconstruction, rehabilitation, remodeling, renovation, relocation, or demolition. To add in a sentence saying a total demolition of a historic structure
Right.
always requires. I think to some extent that's already in 30A4 that you pointed out, demolition of any historic structure. But then to Steve's point,
Right.
I'm not sure if it might be better to be exceptionally clear.
Right.
Well, I think the people who were here last time needed that kind of clarity, and maybe city council will want to see it too.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess the question is whether the best place to do that is in code or kind of to your point earlier, Chapin, in additional buffering interpretive documents.
I think
Yeah, or handbook or website or
I think we're probably a long way off on that, so I think in the meantime, I think advising 2A is a good idea to maybe take out the demolition and then just add another letter that says demolition of a historic structure.
oh wait, yeah,
Total demolition of a historic structure would be like a letter under substantial modification.
yeah. Yeah, and then I don't know whether we want to then make a note that partial demolitions potentially could be insubstantial, or just let that sort of come up as it comes up.
That's good.
Let people sort of come and pose that question so that they know that they need to pose it rather than
And
thinking.
because you have to determine that, I would think maybe we don't put it somewhere, because then that way everybody comes, and then if it's just
Mhm.
partial, then that's a determination that can be handled at that point, because you don't even know until they bring it to you whether or not it's gonna have to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we could say, but then, if there's something that we say, okay, when they come to us and say, this does not need to go to the HPC, we can use 1E.
As
To
the sort of
As the,
exit. right?
yeah, to get it, yeah, back to
Yeah,
substantial.
I like that.
Okay.
The last, what we're doing, we are putting in an addition about total demolition, right? But not necessarily, but nothing about partial demolition. So,
I think we're taking out, see where it says or demolition at the. A COA, but then in just sort of in certain cases, as people bring things up, there might be things that fall under 1E for insubstantial as partial demolitions, that then not necessarily every single partial demolition would come here, but the assumption would be that almost all would come before us. But there is sort of an out for certain rare projects.
That aren't deemed historic,
Yeah,
once they come to us, but I think the point Scott's trying to make is they need to all come to us in a COA form, and then we can determine whether it's insubstantial or substantial.
And that actually would not be, it would be providing clarification, but it would not be changing what the code is already doing right now. Because right now, 2A says that all demolitions are substantial. Now that we're introducing these definitions for partial and total demolition, we would be addressing your comment about total demolitions being requiring a substantial modification. But we could also do partial to make sure that we need it, and we have the ability for all demolitions to come HBC, which is what the code says right now, at the last word of 2A. But staff can use 1E to make those administrative determinations that a partial demolition does not need to come from the HBC.
what do you all think?
We can get this little bonus. Oh, guess what? Your demolition is special. You won't have to go to the HBC. Nobody's gonna complain about that. But it makes sense.
I mean, so
I don't know if we need it,
maybe
you
just
know.
trying to think of an example that would be a partial demolition, which the code would say is a substantial modification, but we can still use 1E to say that the HBC doesn't see it. Like, I guess my first thought, I did receive a call from someone that said, I have a sunroom, like a small sunroom area that was built on the front of the historic house. And it was, it's a small area and it's just made of what plexiglass. And we just want to remove that plexiglass. It's not even on a foundation, and take it back to the historic facade and make sure all the siding stuff is replaced to match the existing. And I would say, okay, we're talking about less than 100 square feet. I don't have any concern. The HBC would say, no, you can keep that sunroom that was just on plexiglass sunroom. It's gained significance.
Yeah, I think that's a good example of a partial that would certainly be insubstantial.
Well, I guess if you feel comfortable with just indicating all demolitions have to be considered substantial, but feel like 1E gives you a back door, then that's okay with me.
But what if somebody complains about that and they said, you know, you didn't make this person come in your bylaws or your rules say that they have to. And someone says, we're doing or not we, you are doing a special favor to somebody, you know, is that something we need to worry about?
Well, I think that would then just go to the appeal procedure of the code. I'd have to review that quickly, I guess, to answer that, what the appeal process is.
Given that,
Another option could be to say in that clause you're adding, total demolition will require a substantial COA. Or is considered substantial. Partial demolition may be considered substantial. And that way, that gives you the flexibility to deal with it without it coming to us. If it's something minor like you just described.
All right, I think I want to. Think about the language.
Yeah, I don't wanna raise a red flag that's gonna be a problem with city council. I'm just thinking about the fact that somebody on the city council brought up the issue of total and partial demolition, and so it could be that person will be looking for anything that relates to that.
All right. So do we want to nail down that exact language now, or would you be comfortable with staff? Trying to come up with language as we proceed into like the next steps of planning and zoning commission public hearing and the two council meetings. Next stop is actually council. We're actually doing city council for first reading because they want to see the purpose of P and Z. So city council first reading, which is not a public hearing. And then planning and zoning commission public hearing, and then city council second reading, which is a public hearing.
I think staff's done a great job so far, so I don't know that we need to sit here and wordsmith it, but you have the basic idea of what I'm getting at
Right.
and what Scott's talking about too, so we can just take our comments and try to figure out the best way to deal with it.
Okay. This will be the last time that it's adopted. Assuming we won't be, we will update the course, but we won't be like bringing this back for a work session or anything.
Right, we won't get to have any say, basically, once the board are gonna start taking it to these public hearings.
Scott, is that okay?
I have trust in staff. Yeah.
So where are you from?
Mining town, there's some national survey, one block away from this murder street. Three mining districts, all in mining towns, you're registered to serve districts. And, but I didn't.
That was what I call the ultimate professional. Ultimate.
Yeah. It's out before or after I was told to pick my bags.
Yeah, that was kind of harsh.
Yeah. It's a little cruel, yeah.
All right.
Okay, so you got what you need on that, just adding another letter under two,
Mhm.
under 17.
Leave it to me to complicate things.
No, that's exactly what we're doing.
Exactly. Okay,
Last, comment from the council was give guidance for what is considered a partial demolition that would be allowable. And so I think we've already talked about that a bit, if not.
Mhm.
now we've got the criteria for partial demolition and definition.
Right. Partial demolition is defined as any act or process which destroys in part a historic structure. So I think we do want to leave that, if the intent is to allow partial demolitions to be substantial modifications, which by default go to HPC, then we are introducing a definition for partial demolition. We could include examples. Other parts of our code, like the zoning code, does include examples, so that this definition could read, in order to address this council member's comment. Partial demolition means an active process which destroys in part a historic structure, including but not limited to. And then we could provide some, the removal of a plexiglass sunroof. We could provide some examples included but not limited to.
Madam Chair, can I make a comment on that, please? Because you said that you wouldn't be able to see it again before it went to second reading. And while that's true as a commission, it's not true as a citizen. And input for changes can take place at second reading, just in this law, right?
And we will have the opportunity as individuals to go to the planning and zoning public hearing and the second reading as a public hearing as well, and comments are allowed at both of those. Isn't that true during a public hearing? So if there's something that we wanted to tell, we can see it again.
I'd suggest not putting in examples unless somebody says that they want to see examples. Example you already used got taken out.
Right, that's exactly what I was thinking, Steve. We're not a commission, I do that about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep it, yeah.
Okay. Sounds good, I think. Just gonna take a quick scan through, make sure I didn't miss anything, but I think that's it in terms of these red ones.
And as a commission, is there any specific parts of these red lines that you had questions about? We looked over so many times, I just want to make sure that you're comfortable with all of it. You know, like the red lines from previous that we worked out and then these yellow highlighted.
On page 10 of 12 of the red lines. Their letter F. Or section F, I did make one additional revision there, I'll highlight, I have. A historic structure highlighted. And so the revision that was made there is I'm reverting back to, where it just says, historic structure now. Previously, it said a historic structure within the NHL district. So, let's see here. Give me 1 second, I'm trying to remember the point of this. Okay, so my clarification here is we're not concerned with demolition of non-historic structures.
Yeah, so we're not concerned with necessarily with all demolitions in the historic district, just historic structures.
Because previously this read no demolition within the NHL district. Now it reads no demolition of a historic structure. Maybe we can just say within the historic structure within the NHL district, but this code section only applies to NHL district.
Yeah,
Right.
I just-
It seems pointless to say.
And where does it define what a historic structure is?
Should be
Page 2.
beginning of page 1 or 2. So the second page of the red lines at the top,
Okay,
and then the definition includes the NHL district, so
Within the NHL.
just an important clarification, we're not subjecting, well, let's see, we're not, I guess I was trying to say, we're not subjecting non-historic structures, demolition of non-historic structures to a COA. So if I can determine that a structure is non-historic, in other words, it doesn't meet this definition, then it would not come in front of.
So determining this,
yeah.
Period of significance is part of the definition of historic structure.
And I think once we get the. Whatever I.
Just like I brought that work session to you for the, what you determined to be a non-historic garage. If there's any question about whether or not it meets the definition of a historic structure, we can subject it to a COA.
mhm. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, and in our definitions of demolition total and demolition partial, they both refer to historic structure, so we have that covered there as well.
All right, that is it for the red lines. So with that, so just in terms of the schedule, this is all going pretty quickly. So tomorrow morning, I will be sending an email to the city attorney requesting these red lines for the, if you remember, we're doing 2 ordinances. We have a 6-month demolition loophole ordinance drafted, and city attorney has it ready to go. So I'll take these red lines tomorrow and send them to the city attorney, and she'll draft the expanded applicability ordinance. And then the schedule for that will be first reading at city council. First reading at city council Tuesday, June 6th, so 2 weeks from now. The following week, Wednesday, June 14th at Planning and Zoning Commission. And then the following week, Tuesday, so. back to back to back reviews and commission and council.
And then after that second read.
Unless you guys need emergency, which is rare. No, it's 30 days before it takes effect.
Okay,
After second.
so by July 20th, approximately, this should be effective.
So this, the planning commission then will make a recommendation to council like we
Yes.
do.
Correct, like we do.
Yeah, there was a code revision last year that requires any revision to Title 17, the text amendment Title 17, which all the historic district stuff falls under, for that to go in front of planning and zoning commission for public hearing first.
If you feel strongly you'd like for it to go into effect upon second reading, you can ask that it be an emergency ordinance.
I don't think really because of our demolition. Might have us covered on anything scary that, you know, we couldn't wait that 30 days for, but I think the demolition doesn't expire till what, September? November.
Yeah.
So, but to the mayor's point, we do have that option to stay effective immediately on the second reading.
Then we should probably plan to try to publish, I mean, I know that it's made public in various ways, but you know, we haven't seen a COA in however long. And so it might need to bring to the attention of
That
the
they need
public.
to get where, and I know second reading, yeah, and second reading is published, second reading is published in full, it's first reading where it's published in full, and second reading is published by title only. So the first reading as city council, it has to, the whole thing has to be published in the paper. So that's helpful in itself, but you do make a good point, after it becomes effective, we might need to do a little PR to let everybody know, okay, this went into effect. And now you're required to, yeah, that's a good point.
I asked Patrick at the paper if he would like a column from somebody, not me. You know, yeah, I talked to you a little bit about, and he said, yeah, that'd be fine, you know, if somebody wants to come up with something.
And I was kind of hoping honestly that they might do an article on the changes that we're doing to HPC and, you know, I thought they might do something in a bad light, I'm sorry, for the people that were here and that, you know, had a reporter been here, that could have gone
Mhm,
in an ugly way in the paper. So
yeah,
I was kind of hoping maybe they would be a little more, maybe we could reach out and ask them to do a story on the new ordinance, but we could definitely do an article and pay.
I don't know, you know, I can't say that that will happen.
You never know what they're gonna do an article on, and that's the beauty of the paper.
But it's just another way to get
Right, but I think that's a
information.
good idea that. maybe we
And, you
should
know,
do
if it
something.
is, we do something, I would suggest we make it quite simple. You know,
Confused,
not confuse people with
or make them
too many little in.
change something else.
Well, you know, it's not necessary, but I
Right.
did ask him if he would be interested in.
And I already have like language that could be just copy and pasted into that. Like from the slideshows and stuff that I presented previously, the posters and everything, so I'd be happy to provide that too.
Yeah, well, that'd be great, because, yeah, I'm sure it would be helpful. And Dan Lundin, you know, you saw the thing, he was all charged up, but he got so involved in tax credits, you know, and I thought, we don't, you know, tax credits are an excellent thing to talk about, but I think it would be more confusing than anything else. I mean, if he wants to do it, fine. He did offer to help me write a letter if I wanted to. And
But the tax credits to me don't drive that. I mean, maybe it will help people say, you know, I'm gonna do it the right way because I can get tax credits, but I still gotta replace this roof or whatever.
But that's,
anyway,
yeah,
so-
that's pretty far down the
Right,
road
so
compared to
my head
this.
just keeps thinking, I don't know that that's the driving force to get the COAs, but you're right. It might get too confusing for the simple, just for the people who are wanting to just do a few minor
Mhm.
changes and making sure they get it approved, so. I don't know, we'll have to think about that one too, to include, because I think we do need to do some more outreach and have some little workshop type things for tax credits, and
Right.
for the people who wanna come here, but to me,
Absolutely.
if you talk to the people who aren't interested in the tax credits, you're. That just to make sure that we can have covered everything we can with what we got feedback from the people, anything tangible that might be needed to be put into our code or anything that we might need to change. So we don't have to hash this out or go over it. I just wanted everybody to be aware of the 2 letters that we did get and the suggestions that we got. But again, I think that the feedback wasn't tangible enough to be able to change what we're trying to do.
So that was the last thing I wanted to cover is, from my perspective, the open house. The purpose of the open house is, as the mayor already mentioned, is really 2 things. Is, yes, we want to take in public comment, but maybe perhaps even the primary purpose, but definitely one of the purposes of the open house is to get information out there. So we certainly were, checking the box of trying to get the information out there. From a staff perspective, obviously we received a lot of comments, a lot of questions. If I had to summarize, particularly the second open house, I didn't see any comments, any valid comments that would compel me to make any revisions, and that's why I didn't propose any revisions based on any of those comments. We heard a lot of clamor. We heard a lot of comments that were, regarding things like property rights. But I would, welcome if anyone has any, I was kind of under the gun, answering some questions on the fly, so I wasn't taking notes. We didn't get a great recording. Obviously, we're in open house format, so if there were individual comments that you received and when everyone broke out that are valid, by all means, let's talk about those. I did not receive any in the breakout portion either.
Yeah, I thought you did a great job. I thought, as with our previous experience with our first interactions with city council, there's always a larger gap than I think we anticipate in terms of how people interpret and what they understand, read or thought about what our changes are. And part of that second session seemed to be attempting to bridge that, because I don't think that our idea and the idea of people who seem to disagree with us at the open house of what we ultimately want Leadville to be like and what sorts of structures and character and feel are that different. It's mostly in terms of sort of how we think, what we think the best way to get there is.
Well said.
And that's not something you can really address in terms of modifying code changes.
I'm always surprised because if anybody, these people who have lived here for a long time, don't want Leadville to change. And if anybody, any organization also has that as a goal, it's us. We're trying to maintain this. So I'm thinking, there should be some way that we maybe get that across a little bit better, that we are here to keep Leadville.
Right.
And, not a very good, keep Leadville, but maybe some sort of a saying that goes with
You know
historical.
what my daughter's saying, she sees on the bumper stickers and those stickers all the time is just keep Leadville shitty.
Well,
It
yeah,
seems like they don't understand that we really want it. Yeah, I mean, of course, we don't think it is, but that perception of how it is, whatever you want to call it, want to keep it the way it is.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, you could think of some ways to get that message across as we go on, you know, that this is what we do,
Right,
you know, and we're
that's
not,
our whole goal is to keep it the way it is.
yeah, and,
I think we should do another newsletter,
oh my gosh.
door newsletter, once you're ready. You know, maybe after this is passed, and send it out, and talk about exactly, make that point from the very beginning.
Mhm.
That our whole mission, our whole goal as a historic preservation commission is to keep Leadville the way it is, and that charm and that
Preserve,
character.
yeah, the historic preservation says it, but it
Right,
doesn't hit the, you know, that just doesn't resonate.
Yeah,
with
and then
people.
for a lot of people in the second session, well, especially the fellow with the dog and then some other folks, then
See?
identify that with sort of gentrification,
Gentrification,
rising
yeah.
property values, that they think it's gonna be like Breckenridge or Georgetown, or I don't know,
Mhm.
Right.
like.
when the
some-
very basis of what we're trying to do is to avoid all that. And that's probably my biggest frustration with it, is
Mhm.
they're not understanding we're on the same side here.
Mhm.
And they're so quick
Definitely.
to think that we're regulating things when it's the exact opposite. We're wanting to make sure that things don't go crazy and gentrification doesn't happen and people don't get forced out of their homes because we've priced it, you know, we've moved up in the world, we price things so high that
Mhm.
I wish there was a way for us to get that message, and maybe the mayor's
Yeah.
newsletters are
Yeah, but
a
it's
way
a
to do that,
tough
but I,
communications issue that we'll have to sort of
right,
negotiate.
how you can get that point across when that's exactly.
Times throughout the night.
You know, say, oh, I just remembered something I should have said, right? You know, but, and there were definitely a couple of those, right? And one of those was that historic preservation does not necessarily equal gentrification. It's probably exactly the opposite in a lot if it's done well. And I think there's different ways to do historic preservation, and historic preservation can lead to gentrification. And that, you know, the market forces are highly, influential upon that. But, you know, if you think about the idea of making a historic home stay a historic home and not allowing a 2,000 square foot, like glass box addition on the back, that could, drive up the value of that property, and it has short-term rental capability because of its capacity, floor area, and all those things. If you're not allowing that to happen, then, with that example, you're not allowing the market value to rise. So I think there's a strong argument for that historic preservation is, I guess, protects from gentrification.
Yeah, we should do something with that, making,
Mhm.
emphasizing, like,
All this will be moved compared to assessed values.
yeah.
That's the trade.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That kills us.
Mhm. Yeah,
Which could really help this whole situation. I started going through them.
The city and the county would lower the taxes.
That's,
Taxes.
that should happen. I hope it does happen.
Yeah, I mean, it has to happen
It
because,
has to happen. I would agree with you. But the problem is that some of the other districts, you know as well as I do, there's no way they're going to forego any of that money, for the hospital district, and its mills, or the school district, or Leadville sanitation. If the city and county can reduce their mills, and they can, and not collect all that money, that's great, but it's not the whole picture. So.
no. But anyway,
Can I ask you a question about the draft ordinance?
Please.
So this is just aimed at the moratorium on destruction of buildings, right?
So these red lines include.
Well, I'm telling you that there's
Yeah,
a draft
separate.
ordinance,
Well, that's right,
That is
yes,
separate.
yes.
There's two ordinances. This is
so
the
that's just, that's not going to sidetrack the getting the entire thing passed, is it?
No, that's why we separated, so the red lines you have in front of you are red lines that you have in front of you are one combined package. So that you as the HPC can see how these would work together. But when this goes to ordinance, we're separating these out with two ordinances, so that if there's any issue with the expanded applicability code amendments, it's not becoming a roadblock for the demolition control ordinance.
Okay, I just wanted some clarification on that.
Okay, is there anything else? Well, I guess we get to grant opportunities. I'm sorry. Are we through with code amendments?
Yes, thank you so much for your involvement and feedback.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, guys, great work.
So everybody's good with the code amendments, right? Okay.
Planning, among other things. So we decided to put together an application. The application turned out not to be very long or complicated. And so Steve and I were able to get a draft together, which you see here. If not all of the language, most of the language is from previous grant applications, just sort of adapted for this one. Ideas or suggestions for what we should include with those as those photos.
Which section? Oh,
On page 35 of the whole packet, page 7 of the thing, there's a photos.
Yeah, I think they ought to be pictures of the places where, pictures of structures in the places we're gonna do surveys. Not on Harrison.
so
All right, so
structures that are not, you know.
yeah, I think I think Metcalf included some in their different packages that they put together for us. Their bids for the 3 different areas. So I might just be able to easily draw stuff from that.
Are there photos? I could talk to Janice Fox because she stole all the photos from the.
Do you think they should be historic photos or current photos of the areas?
Maybe both.
We have 4 photo
Maybe,
Places.
maybe one. We could do one from each of the 3 areas that were.
Great. And I believe this is due June 3rd.
I think it's the first.
Something like that. Anyway, I wanted to suggest that maybe people could spend a day or 2 looking this over. Suggestions to me by Thursday or Friday, so that then I can send it to you and say, basically, it's ready for you to sign and submit. Does that sound like a good timeline?
Yeah, I was gonna look at.
When is, what is the calendar? It's Memorial Day.
That's the problem, it's the 29th. I'm just gonna go with the first one. Because 31st is Wednesday, so I could even have until Wednesday after, you know, that week of Memorial Day
Yeah, but yeah,
to get it. So if
so-
you guys could get it to come like Friday, this Friday.
yeah, I'll get it to you sometime over the weekend. And it'll be in your inbox Tuesday
Right,
morning.
Tuesday, and then I'll have a day, because I probably need to get a W-9 or whatever that. is.
Yeah, there's always like new
Yeah,
forms and
yeah,
things for me.
I have to get it together, so that would give me Tuesday, Wednesday to get that.
Yeah.
So can you guys make yourselves a note to, if you have any comments or any revisions, to get it to Scott by Friday, Thursday or Friday?
Yeah,
this
Scott,
week.
Scott, I was thinking that, you know, the three photos, one of structures within the three survey areas, maybe the fourth photo, the historic one, could be of Harrison Avenue.
Yeah.
Just giving a real sense of what Leadville
The character.
has been.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
that's not a bad idea at all.
I have thoughts on the other ones. Do you want me to dig up some or?
Sure, if you have stuff that you
Well, I mean, I
have in
can
mind.
go out and take it. I'm thinking
Yeah,
that
or
the
if you
King
just-
House up on 9.
Yeah, if you have houses in each neighborhood that you think, or blocks that you think are particularly nice or representative, and you wanna just walk around and take photos and send them to me,
Yeah, I have some
that
thought,
would, that
yeah.
would make it
But you
super
want
easy.
one from each section?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, the
yeah.
only one I don't know about is, well, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, well, down there you could get, cause isn't there that, there's the block that has the sort of old commercial.
You
2
mean
or 3 old commercial,
on Third?
yeah.
Yeah, that's one of those houses that Amy Tate was talking about. You talked with her, didn't you?
Yes,
That's one of those houses. That's
Mhm.
historic. And that would be a good picture, actually.
Yeah, yeah, that would, cause then that would give a sense of that that's sort of the old heart of
Yeah.
Leadville, not a whole lot is left necessarily, but you know, there are a couple things and that it's.
And then we can.
Ninth, 10th, 11th, kind of back here. But like the Healy House is part of that, I think, and there's some other.
Yeah, we don't want to use Healy House at least.
Yeah, that gives a perhaps different idea of Leadville from what it actually is.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could do that and try to. No, but I have some thoughts on some of those houses
Great.
that I hope we can say. Well, there's even the mining museum,
Mhm.
Yeah, that's been modified so much, I'm not sure it's the kind of example you want to give. You know, with that junior high being built on it, and the bunker on the other end.
Yeah, there's that one section. Okay, we'll come up with something. Then. Let's see. Okay, website updates.
Website to be more user friendly. And a year or two ago, we already drafted a new sort of website language. And so I think Lori wanted us to, before actually doing it, have an official vote on updating the website.
Is this in?
Yeah, the very last thing.
I was gonna say, I'd love to put this in my newsletter, because it's really comprehensive. So this is just all the narrative or the web.
Yeah, so in theory, at least, this would just be the language of the website, and up top here where we have this sort of list of things, all of those would be links sort of taking you down to that section
Right.
in the
Mhm.
website. We would still have a link to our FAQ, which is currently sort of one of the first things on the website. And hopefully this would help with some of the explanatory side of things in terms of helping people particular forms that you need. Tax credits, what are the resources that are available?
I'm going to suggest that we continue to review this, but we actually table this until the July 20th.
Until after the new stuff goes.
Because then that way the section on what it requires a COA or not.
Yeah, we'll be totally in line. with-
Totally finalized, yeah, we need, you can basically use a lot of that language from the code, or just goes like. The things that are subject to a COA in the code.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a good idea, and just
So we should just
pencil this
go
in
through
for
it,
our July meeting, but in the meantime,
Look at it.
yeah. So that we don't have to then go back through it and write about it again.
So this for the second meeting in July or?
I think so, because the July 20th is technically the effective date, well.
We'll
we could
know,
do it.
we will know on
No,
June 20th.
Yeah.
If it's been approved or not, so then our next meeting after June 20th.
So you
I think our
guys,
first meeting in July.
yeah, first meeting in July, we can,
Okay,
oh yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good idea, and then we can, then we can have this or some modified version of this go live. We
Yeah,
can send something out to people
Right,
saying,
maybe even do that mailer.
we have an updated website, we have an updated city code. Some kind of workshop for tax credits or whatever, we could announce that as a little.
And it'd also be
Some
right in the middle of
enticement.
summer, it's just a perfect timing, I think that's a really good idea, that.
if we do a
like
workshop,
next
then let's have people sign up in advance so that we don't have so many people
That's
that we
true.
don't,
If
so we
can't
can.
accommodate it.
If there are so many people, we could have two, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Main Street's totally willing to assist in the future, and
Cool, okay,
I love it.
yeah, the newsletter is very helpful. Very helpful.
Okay, so,
History Colorado
mhm.
has to set up a meeting with